In January of 1945, the Russians were approaching our camp. As a matter of fact, they were so close we could hear the small arms fire. And the Germans were concerned that the Russians would liberate us, and so they moved us to another camp. So it was in the dead of winter. It was about 8 o'clock at night, I think it was about the 27th of January, that they came into our room and said that we had to be ready to march within an hour.
We broke the trail through about 6 inches of snow, and in the face of the blizzard, and then the other followed us. The line of POWs that night stretched across about 20 miles.
But as we made our way through this village, an old woman stepped out of the crowd, and she fell into step with me, and while we were walking along together, she put her hand in my pocket. And I had no idea what she had deposited there, because after all, she was the enemy. And then after she took her hand out of my pocket, she faded back into the crowd again. And so very gingerly, I put my hand in my pocket and found a small round object, took it out. It was a potato. And I didn't wait to wash it. I ate it immediately.
All the time while in prison camp, a real enemy was not the Japanese soldiers, but it was the loss of hope, loss of faith, giving up. When you give up, then that seemed to be the end for a lot of the fellows.
My parents were notified after I was captured about 2 months later that I was missing in action. So they didn't know whether I was dead or whether I was just missing in action. And the greatness of my dad again, they were all crying and all down. He was crying too, but he said to my mother and my sister, "The Lord give us and the Lord take us away. Praise be the name of the Lord."
The first indication that the war was coming to an end was that P-38 fighters were flying over, and we could hear the war being conducted in the village.
The little steeple in the town of Mossberg had a big, tall flagpole on it, had a big black swastika there. Came slowly down. American flag went up to the top of the pole. I looked around and saw men I knew were tough. Tears just streaming down their face. Just to see the American flag.
The war affected my spiritual life in that I knew, this was after it was over, that Father in heaven had made a decision that I would be protected and spared. And I was forever grateful to him for this. I knew that. My spirit sort of came together, and I kind of knew who I was, and I knew where I was going.
As I look back on the entire military experience, I realize what a profound influence it has had on my life. The horror of conflict, the gratefulness that I have for the life that I've been able to live, the thankfulness I have to my Heavenly Father for His kindness to me, the deepened patriotism that I feel for my country, my beloved country.
I remember my grandmother who walked across the plains as a young girl, and as I stood at her knees when I was a young boy. She'd pat me on the head. She'd said, make the most of everything. Make the most of everything. And that's what we did. We made the most of a bad experience and made a positive experience out of it. I feel I'm a better man because of that experience. I've endured hardship. I've been hungry like I'd never been hungry before. I've been exhausted to the point where you felt like crying. I've been cold, your feet were frozen. All of these experiences we endured, we survived, and the knowledge of who we were and the strength that we gained from just having faith was wonderful. It carried us through.
As I have reflected back upon what I was asked to do in the military, sometimes I hesitate to even talk about it because the opportunity was so great.
The opportunity to give needed service, to pay an almost unpayable debt, doesn't come to everyone. Or maybe we should say we don't take opportunity to repay that debt. And I'm speaking of the debt that we owe to a mother who gives us birth and parents who raise us with love and care, to the church that guides our lives, and then to our country that offers us freedom and protection. And so I was always grateful that I could give complete service to my country, which opportunity came and was thrust upon me and countless others suddenly on December 7th, 1941. I've often said I wouldn't want to take $1 million for the experiences I've had, but I wouldn't give 40 cents to do it again.